Hello everyone, I'm Jusuke J.J. Ikegami, professor at Waseda University and host of today's session. Let me introduce Shun and Shin, please.
Okay, hi, I'm Shun Fujioka at NTT Data Institute of Management Consulting. I'm pleased to be here today to ask to get the very good insights from Dr. Jonasan. Thank you very much.
And hi, I'm Shintaro Sakamoto from NTT Data Institute of Management Consulting also. Today, I'd like to ask Jonasan about this book as a first reader of Japan and also perspective of how to utilize about this book to our clients. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Shun and Shin. So let's call Jonasan. Hi, Jonasan. Please join us.
Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good. Okay, so could you give your self-introduction, please?
Thank you, JJ. My name is Professor Jonathan Trevor, and I'm faculty at Oxford's Saïd Business School at the University of Oxford. I'm also the author of Realign, a leadership blueprint for overcoming disruption and improving performance.
Thank you, Jonasan. Okay, so today we three teams get together here to bridge your book, first align and realign. Okay, as you may know, we all are realign lovers, but we need to bridge your book to the Japanese context today. Yeah, so that's why we hold this session. Okay, so as you may know, quite a lot of Japanese companies have a difficulty to transform themselves to adapt the environmental change. Yeah. But in order to transform themselves, as you wrote on this book, they need to review their purpose, strategy, organizational capability, so on. But not so many books or theory explain about how to do it. Right? So we'd like to start the discussion today. First of all, can I ask you for how the Japanese situation is, the situation of Japanese companies are in terms of realign? Because you do a lot of consultation or teaching to Japanese major companies. So you may know the Japanese situation, and of course, you know a lot of non-Japanese, Western, or Asian companies. So could you give me your impression of how you view the situation of Japanese companies in terms of realignment?
Yeah. Thank you, JJ. I think that's a really great question. And if I may, I will give a slightly controversial answer.
Wow. Yes,
well,
please.
Here we go. Because I think the purpose of the book is to take a global perspective.
Right.
On the key issues facing all industries and all companies across the world. So the book contains case studies on British companies, on European companies, on French companies, on American companies, but also Asian companies as well.
Yeah.
And one of the key themes is that there are some global common challenges, but also global common leadership opportunities. Now, the controversial bit is through my work with you, my esteemed colleague, but also my work with Japanese companies. There is this idea, I think, in Japan, that Japan is a high context culture and quite unique, and that many of the global challenges are different in Japan. But actually, I do not believe that is so much the case. I actually think that Japanese companies and Japanese leaders face the same challenges as everywhere else in the world. So the book is really written for everybody, including Japanese business. But where I think we need to have the very targeted and very customized approach is when we think not about the challenges, which are common, but rather about the solutions. I think the realignment solutions need to look different in Japan they also need to look different on a company by company basis. So what works for company A will not work for company B. I think that creates a tension for leaders to have to think very carefully about their own business and resist the temptation to want to copy other businesses or other solutions. But it also creates a tremendous opportunity, I think, to find a homegrown solution that gives advantage in a very unique and a very specific way that other competitors, for example, cannot copy or emulate.
Right. Thank you. So you mentioned about the high contextness of Japanese companies. And does that high contextness may influence some special characteristics in terms of realignment of Japanese companies?
I think there are some high context elements, but not as many as we think there are. I actually would challenge the idea that Japanese business is so different from, say, Western business. As I was saying earlier, I actually think they are much more similar than they are different. But I do believe that there are some key structural differences. I believe employment style is one such difference. I think a number of the organizations I work with, they have quite a unique approach to how they manage their human resources. I think that is one area of difference. And that's due to a variety of reasons, which are cultural, which are legal, which are technical. But even then, that is not so different. I think the real challenge is how do all of us realign in the face of big global disruption, whether that's COVID, whether that's technological disruption, whether that's political disruption, and how do we build that leadership capability to think about our businesses in a different way for the future.
Okay, so could I have a question about the same theme, but including more of the perspective of the digital transformation? And that's meaning is the transformation of business models with digital technologies. And so many of our clients are becoming to rethink how their organization should change, and which is triggered by the current diffusion of digital technologies. So are there any characteristics in the direction of strategic realignment of overseas enterprises which are said to be successful in digital transformation? And I would like to ask in two cases. And first, about the case of the pure IT enterprises, about GAFAM. So it seems that the network service provider is the ideal form of strategic realignment form with these enterprises. And it is true, or it is not necessary that one model case or like that. So.
Okay. I think a really important principle is this. Well, there are a number of important principles. Number one, everybody I speak to, digital is number one or number two on their agenda. And I think that's both a good thing, but it's also something that we need to be careful about. So I think there's a number of key points here. Number one, I think there is a danger that digital is seen as, in some sense, a band-aid to try and fix aspects of business which traditionally leaders have found too difficult to avoid. So people talk about digital as being the solution and the only solution to make their business better. I think digital is absolutely critical, but it cannot be the only solution, or it cannot be the solution to all problems. Digital, for me, is part of just one aspect of an organization's capability to fulfill its full potential and to perform the best. And digital capability must be integrated with other forms of organizational capability, such as people capability, such as culture, such as structure, such as partnership working. All of these things must come together in order to create a high-performing, a resilient, and a sustainable organization. So that's number one. To really think about digital in a strategic way and not to think of it as just simply being the solution to all problems, because it cannot be that. No one thing, nothing can be that. I think the second thing is that managing digital in a strategic way means that we need to understand its use as a means to an end. And from a strategic alignment perspective, you talk about the strategic alignment framework, you talk about these competing approaches for how a company can compete to win in its various markets, from efficiency to flexibility, from focus through to synergies. For me, digital does not sit in one quadrant of that framework, which is a core framework in the book. Digital is in every quadrant, but it serves different purposes. In the efficiency maximizer quadrant, digital supports us to be as efficient as we possibly can be. That includes data, it includes monitoring, it means very precise resource allocation. These are the outcomes of really effective digital transformation. But if I think about it in the enterprising responder quadrant, digital serves another purpose. There it's about developing really great customer insight, having very precise information about markets and market segmentation. It's about connecting internal teams to be able to offer reconfigurable and highly customized propositions to individual markets or even individual customers. If we think about the network exploiter, then the purpose is to help to support, to connect the network, and for the commissioning organization that sits at the heart of it to leverage that network. So for me, you know, like all things strategy and organization related, there is an ends and there is a means, and digital is a means to an ends. And we need to think very carefully about what we're using it for, how we manage it in the best way, and how we integrate it with other forms of resource and capability to ensure that we are as fit for purpose as possible. So really, I would propose that we think about digital in a very precise way, not in a general way. And that, I think, is how we get maximum value.
So I have an additional question to him. What is the organizational structure like to be when each division in the enterprise has different strategic approaches in SAF? So we, NTT Data Institute of Management Consulting, believe that 3 perspectives are required when promoting digital transformation: customer first mind, speedy and agile transformation, and diverse customer contact points leveraging digital technology. So when we see these 3 key words from the perspective of SAF, they clutter around multiple quadrants, I think. So is it possible for an enterprise promoting DX to have multiple types of organizations within one enterprise? That's my question.
I think that's a really great question. And I think that's, in many respects, one of the biggest leadership challenges, again, in Japan, but across the world. And it's really interesting to see how different organizations are responding to this challenge. And for me, the question you're asking is one about diversification and variety. And I think for me, the strategic alignment concept asks the big question, what are we trying to be good at in order to fulfill our purpose in line with our chosen strategy? That's the really key question. And it's a very simple principle. If we only need to be good at one thing, that's relatively simple. If we choose to be good at multiple different things, maybe we have multiple different lines of business, or maybe we're trying to do our business in multiple different geographies, then it becomes a more complex organization. It becomes a harder leadership challenge to manage that variety of different capabilities and to be good at each, but to be also good across. And it's hard. It's hard to be good at more than one thing at the same time, particularly if those things, those different lines of businesses are potentially very different. It's very difficult to be superior at efficiency whilst at the same time being superior at customer centricity. They are fundamentally different propositions. One is around standardization. The other is around customization. They require different cultures. They require different structures. They require different people skills and knowledge. So I think there's a challenge there around ambidexterity, this ability to do both. And I think DX has, digital transformation, but I think digital capability, including the strategic use of data and data mining and analytics, has a huge role to play in allowing our organizations, our businesses, to operate in this ambidextrous way, to be good at different things at the same time. But I would also say that this is, I think, something that we are struggling with. You can look at many examples across the world of organizations which are reversing a process of diversification that started in the 1990s. I would look to the example of General Electric. It's now split into 3 companies. Why? I think because it's hard to manage that conglomerate structure. If you look at IBM, that has split similarly. And you can see that in virtually every industry. So one of the potential benefits of DX for the future, I think, is to help support this ambidexterity, this ability to manage multiple different businesses within the same organization at the same time. But that's something that we're struggling with right now. And in many respects, a lot of organizations, when faced with that challenge, are choosing to simplify by splitting. So I think you've identified a really hot topic.
Is there any general trend on the digital influence on leadership or through the organization? Actually, you mentioned a bit already that for leadership, I think they probably by the digitization, leader can get more close connect with the employee. That will be the general trend. And then for the organization, probably we can, maybe those leaders could shift the organization more faster, or the speed may not change. How do you guess?
So I think you said it exactly right the first time. It depends. But I agree with everything else you said. So I think digital can help leaders to become more closely connected to their people, especially in an environment which is now more hybrid and more virtual than before. I think it can enable organizations to become closer to their customers. But I also think it can enable organizations to become closer to their partners as well. So I think one of the biggest differences that digital can make to the future business environment that simply was not possible in the past is that it enables more of a platform and ecosystem based model of working, which is not a new thing, but it's been challenging in the absence of having that type of connectivity needed that digital makes possible with partners. So in the future, I would expect to see more and more organizations resembling less the hierarchical model and more the ecosystem model, because it's through that ecosystem that they can capture more resources, more capabilities, more knowledge, more innovation. And digital enables that ecosystem to come together as one cohesive whole. So organizations are opening up because now they have the means of connecting through digital technology that previously they did not. But I also think it can mean that even efficiency-based organizations that will still remain primarily internally focused can be more efficient simply because they can make better resource allocation decisions in real time and faster because they have more information at their disposal. So I think, there is a digital revolution, but it's about helping businesses to be the best they possibly can be, and fulfill their potential.
Yeah, very interesting. So you said the organization may open to the outer ecosystem, and then maybe that may influence to the type of leadership, isn't it? So this kind of circular may happen.
Right.
Good.
Absolutely.
Good. Yeah. At the end, could you give some final message to Japanese readers?
My final message would be, I have been visiting Japan for work since 2002. So this year marks my 20th anniversary of engaging in Japan. And I think I visited now 50 times, and had the great pleasure to work with many great companies and many wonderful collaborators, like JJ, and other colleagues. And I'm deeply committed to Japan, as both a business environment, but also as a great source of innovation. And I really hope this book helps a little bit. It was written for everybody, and I really hope that you find value from the book and that it helps you in your particular context.
Great. Thank you very much. See you
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you.
Thank you for your kindness.
Bye bye.